typically have a really strong turnout at this meeting, but not usually this many of you. So it's wonderful to see so many of you here that have made the trip, some of you long distances. I wonder if anybody can beat Justin. Justin, how far was your drive in?
It was right at 3 hours.
Okay, 3 hours is not as far as I thought. Anybody beat 3 hours? You had 4, you had 5. Ava, how many?
I had 3.5.
You had 3, okay, yeah.
About 3.5.
3.5, okay, thank you. Well, we appreciate you making the trip in. My name is Jason Glass. I'm the Commissioner of Education, at least for another few days here. I'll talk a little bit about that transition coming up. But it's my charge to welcome you. So we're again glad to have you here. I'll just tell you a few things that are happening here at the department right now. One of them is our LETRS training, LETRS. It's an acronym. And it is a training around literacy and the science of reading for teachers across the state. Last year we had about 1,700 teachers involved. We've almost doubled that for this year. And it's a shift in the approach to reading away from an approach called whole language, where it was really a method where teachers, some of you may have been taught to read this way, where you would look at pictures in a book or try to find words that you had some awareness or understanding of, and then make an inference from that about the next word coming up, kind of predict. And what we found over time is that that whole language approach really creates, some students succeed with it, but a lot of students really struggle with that approach. And what has been found through research and studies on reading, a much superior approach to reading instruction is decoding techniques, so really understanding words, letters, letter sounds, putting them together, sounding things out. So a lot of you learn to read that way too. Probably learn some combination of the two. But that science of reading approach has been found fairly definitively at this point to be a superior reading technique. And so it's a method that we've used some COVID relief dollars and some state dollars appropriated from the General Assembly to lift up the science of reading approach across the state. Several states around the country are engaged in that effort, but Kentucky certainly has stepped forward as one of them. Another busy thing happening around here right now, we have a 2-year budget session coming up with General Assembly in January, and so there's always a lot of maneuvering around in those big budget sessions, because there's going to be a lot of competition for limited state dollars. And so education and the Kentucky Department of Education and all of the programs that we support and represent will be angling with every other entity that takes tax dollars in the state for the largest share of resources that we can pull together. Some of our priorities will be around increasing what's called the SEEK fund. Schools in Kentucky are funded through primarily 3 resources. One is federal, that people assume that the federal resources are large and substantial. They are substantial, but they really only account for less than 10% of the total funding. So most of the funding that goes into your schools is not from the federal government, it's from your local or state government. And so 10% or so is federal. The other 90% is some combination of local and state funds. And that depends upon the property values in the community in which you live. So if you live in a place with high property values, you'll have a higher local share. If you live in a place with lower property values, you'll have a higher state share. As the SEEK formula is an effort to sort of equalize funding across the state. You may have seen recently in the news and some editorial comments or position papers that were positions that were taken in papers around the state around the SEEK fund. The SEEK fund was created in the early 1990s as a way, again, to equalize funding from low property tax and high property tax districts around the state. But now, after several years of the state government failing to keep up with its side of the equation, keep up with inflation on state funding, we now have those differences, inequities in funding from property wealthy and property poor districts across the state have come back. Some would argue at equal or larger magnitude magnitude than they were prior to the 1990s. So again, the concept was that the state increases its funding to education, sends more dollars to property poor districts, and that creates some equity from one district to the next. So the quality of your education isn't dependent upon the wealth in your community, that there's some equity across that. But when the state doesn't keep up with its funding share over several years, those inequities return, and it's largely driven by property taxes again. So there are questions about that and what will happen with the SEEG funding going forward. But this budget session is a major point of concern and consideration for the staff here at the department, thinking about how they can put forth budget requests and prioritize things with the General Assembly to mostly focus on increasing funding for schools in the state, but also some of the programs that we operate here at the Department of Education. Just a couple of updates, regular things happening here. We have our ongoing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work. And we have Dr. Sweeney here a little later. He'll be able to tell you more about some of the things that they have going on. We have a number of different advisories. This is probably our largest and most active advisory is our student one. We're really proud of this one. But we also have advisories from teachers, from school board members, from superintendents, from parents that we meet with on a regular basis. And so we continue to support those groups and hear their perspectives. We've even expanded our advisories to include a group that we call the Kentucky United We Learn Council. So some of you are involved in that. And the United We Learn Council really is a broad advisory from across the state where we looked at people who wanted to be part of that. So there was an application process. Then we looked at people who we thought needed to be involved, so sort of power players or the usual suspects that we thought needed to be involved, so we asked them to be part of it. And we looked at who was on the list and we said who's not at the table. What communities are not represented, what groups are not represented, what people, what roles are not represented, and then we reached out and recruited additional people to try and make that United We Learn Council as diverse and representative as we possibly could. So that group advises the department and the board on our United We Learn effort. So some of you have been involved with us long enough to remember United We Learn is our state vision and direction when it comes to education. At the heart of it is changing the experiences for students, trying to make our students better prepared for the fast-moving world that's already here, change the experiences for our students. That's the heart of that work. And we have this United We Learn Council that advises us on that. Pay no attention to Tony snapping pictures.
Sorry.
All the time. She can't help herself.
No, per the job description.
And speaking of Tony, we have a number of media requests that come in on a regular basis, so usually several each week where people with the news media have questions about controversies that may be happening in their community or policy questions or things that are happening nationally. There's all sorts of things. It's sort of a random grab bag or you know, you're pulling the net in over the transom. You don't know what's going to come up next. And so sometimes the media requests are sort of that experience, and so we work hard to be responsive to the news media and answer their questions as directly as we can, because one of the worst things that can happen is we have great respect for people that are in the media, but one of the most challenging things that can happen is someone in the media publishes a story that is inaccurate. And then we find it sometimes can take us years of trying to explain and go back and re-educate people on a story that now lives on the internet with bad information in it. So we always feel like it's really important that we do our best to make sure that the journalists have accurate information when they write their stories. And finally, you may be aware that in addition to the work that we do here at the department, we also operate the area technology centers around the state. So some of you may have those in your communities or have some students, or you yourselves may take a bus over to them in a neighboring community. So KD operates a number of those around the state, and we operate the Kentucky School for the Deaf and the Kentucky School for the Blind. So in addition to the work that I've talked about with you, we also are supporting those programs in schools. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with, just as a welcome or update, as I mentioned before, this is my last week as commissioner. I'll be transitioning to a role in higher education. I'll be the Associate Vice President for Teaching and Learning at Western Michigan University. So I'm excited to start that. I'm going to have a blissful week of unemployment in Mexico next week with my family, so I'm looking forward to that and not having the phone or email go off for at least a little while. But I've never worked in higher ed before, so I'm excited about this next chapter. Our family's going to stay in Kentucky, at least for the next year. My wife teaches at Fayette County Public Schools, and my kids are in school there in Lexington. And they're very happy with that, so we didn't want to disrupt their lives. So I'll be burning up the road between here and Kalamazoo, Michigan for a few months, and then we'll take stock and see how things are going and see what happens after that. But it's been a great honor being your commissioner. This is my home state, so the chance to come back and do this work in Kentucky has been an incredible professional honor. I've loved every minute of it, loved getting to work with students especially, and know that the interim commissioner is Robin Kinney is very interested in working with you well. I'm excited for you to get to know and work with Robin more over the next few months. Robin is a veteran here at the department. She's been with the agency for many years. She has incredible respect in the state for her expertise. If you want to talk to somebody that really knows the school finance formula in the state, Robin does, and it's a complicated system. She's also, in addition to her knowledge around sort of school finance and operations, she's also an attorney, so she brings that legal perspective to the work, and so I'm excited about you getting the chance to work with her. I can't imagine a better choice for the interim, so she's an exceptional person and will be a great interim commissioner. And then the Board of Education is going to run a national search for the next commissioner, and been lots of questions about how that's going to happen. The board is really asking questions around what qualities we should have in a new commissioner and what priorities they should have. RJ is here as our student representative on the Board of Education. He's one of those people that traveled several hours to be here too. But RJ is, I think, talking with them today or gathering
Yeah,
some
just giving a
information.
little bit of information.
Getting some information from you on the commissioner search. But I've told everybody who will listen that this is a wonderful place to work. It's a wonderful job, and I'm really hopeful that Kentucky will find a very talented and person that's the right fit for the state, because it's a great state and a great place to work. So am encouraging people to apply. With that, let's see, Tony, what do we have next?
So we're going to do a quick roll call, and because this is kind of our first in-person meeting, and we're kind of seeing each other for the first time in person, we do have a couple that are on line as well. I'm just going to go over real quick and go through a roll call, and I'm going to also mention just your what high school you're at, what grade you're in, just so that we all kind of have a situational awareness of where everyone's at, and we'll go from there. So Ava Benson, senior from Henderson County High School.
Here.
All right. Isaac Blakeman, senior from Somerset High School.
Here.
All right. Owen Borden, a senior from Highlands High School, Fort Thomas Independent.
Here.
Cameron Breyer, a senior from DuPont Manual High School, Jefferson County.
Here.
Okay. Owen Cody, senior from McCracken County High School.
Here.
Hunter Combs, a senior from Knott County High School. I think he's online. He had said he was having a hard time. Okay, not yet. Okay, he had messaged he was going to try to get on. We'll check. Jude Dela from Ignite Academy there she is, yep. So many of you.
Our former member.
Yeah, our former, I was just going to mention, and I'm not sure that RJ has met Jude and Jude has met RJ yet. So I was going to say, yeah, so Jude served on our Kentucky Board of Education last school year. And many of you don't know that this advisory council also plays a very vital role in helping select the next person who will be on the advisory council. So it's a real great opportunity to screen applicants and then bring a recommendation to the board. So exciting opportunity there. Justin Dunning from Lyon County, senior from Lyon County.
Here.
All right. Rima Dutt, senior from DuPont Manual.
Here.
All right, and chair of the student advisory. Manas Garla, a sophomore from Western Hills High School in Franklin. Yes? No? Nope. Okay. Nicholas Hazlitt, a senior from Paintsville High School, Paintsville Independent. Onette Irakiza.
Here.
Did I say that right?
Irakiza.
Irakiza. Okay, I was good. I was wondering. I was hoping I did that right. She is a junior from South Warren High School in Warren County. Trey Jackson, a senior from South Laurel. Okay. Peter Jefferson, a junior from Henry Clay.
Here.
Shraman Carr, a senior from DuPont Manual.
Here.
VJ from Paul Lawrence Dunbar. See him there.
Go
Seth,
Bulldogs.
Seth Langford.
Here.
There from J. Graham Brown in Jefferson, sophomore. Danica Love, a senior from Meade County. All right.
Go Green Waves.
Gabriella McAdams, a sophomore from Williamstown,
Here.
independent. Okay. Constance Ray Martin, a senior from Johnson Central High School, Johnson County. Anopa Muzoni from Lafayette High School in Fayette County.
Here.
All right. RJ Osborne, 11th grade from Whitley County.
Here.
Tanvi Rakesh, 11th grade from Cooper High School in Boone County. All right. Daniel Ratley, a 10th grader from Grayson County.
Here.
All right. Jocelyn Reddick, a 12th grader from South Warren High School.
Here.
Right. Amy Roblero Perez, from Fern Creek High School, senior. Is that right? Amy Roblero Perez. Oh, no, sorry, 12th grade. I was looking at the wrong one. Bardstown High School, 12th grade from Bardstown High School. I was on the wrong line there. Is that right?
Oh, no. I saw it because I'm from Frank Creek, so that's why I said my name.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, Amy Roblero Perez. Is she here?
No? I don't
Okay.
think so.
Sorry. I went down all the way down to Fern Creek. You're Aliete Yanis Medina. Got you. Caleb Robinson, 10th grade, Kentucky School for the Blind. Okay. Sophia Staples, 11th grade, Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School.
Here.
All right. Sophia, I just said that. Ian Swenson, 10th grade from Paducah Tillman.
Here.
All right. Mally Taylor, 12th grade, Craft Academy. Sarah Umbarger, she's 12th grade from Marshall County, and I know she's not able to be here today. She had a death in the family. Austin Vidito, 10th grade from J. Graham Brown in Jefferson. Carly Watts, 10th grade from Hazard High School. Bentley White, 12th grades, Kentucky School for the Deaf. And Eliete India Young, 11th grade, Craft Academy, Rowan. And Joshua Zizak, 12th grade, Beechwood High School, Beechwood Independent. All right, so actually it might be a little walk down Dr. Glass's memory lane here. He is a native of Meade County,
Yeah, that's right.
taught at Hazard High School, and there was another one that was, there was something that was a touch base.
Well, we
So-
live in Dunbar's district.
Oh, that's
so,
right.
yeah.
That's right. That's right. I knew I heard another mascot reference there. So, just a couple of other words about our interim commissioner. I think you guys will be really excited to meet Robin as well, because her office not only manages budget and finance, but she oversees things like school buses and school nutrition. She's really knowledgeable on those areas. So I know a lot of times you guys questions about facilities and transportation. School lunches, things like that. Those are all, she has divisions in her office that have all sorts of information. Also district support. So just think about those things when we're building agendas. If you have things that you'd like to add to those, please make sure you let Bentley and Ryma know about those things so that we can add those things to the agenda if you have any questions. And then I will just take a quick moment before we move to our mindful minute to ask you if you have any questions for the commissioner. He's been here for 3 years. He does not know that I just asked him that, but he has been a really avid supporter of Student Voice, as has been our Kentucky Board of Education. And I know many of you, some of you are familiar faces to the student advisory, but I also just wanted to give you guys an opportunity, if you're still, not sure about, what your role is, or questions about the advisory, or how you can, heighten your voice here at the department or in your districts. If you have any questions for the commissioner at all, or just comments for the commissioner, let me know. Just raise your hand. He'll be here all day, but just wanted to give you that opportunity. All right, shy bunch. All right, good deal. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our fairly new person to this, our fairly new staff member to the Department of Education, Dr. Michelle Searcy. Took over about a week ago, was it? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. She is, well, I'll let her introduce herself. She comes from Jefferson County, and I've known her for a long time, probably the whole time I've been in Kentucky, so 2007 probably, so.
So we'll have to have her somewhere she can speak in a microphone.
Yes.
You want me to stand?
I don't know, can you hear if she stands?
I can talk real loud.
Well,
I have
it's-
4 kids.
It's more for all our thousands of viewers at home.
Okay.
If you
Yeah, you
could
have to
sit
be
at a
in- you have to
microphone,
be
that would
near
be
a mic.
awesome,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then you
Or-
have my back, so I apologize
Oh, no.
in advance. Okay, is this okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I'm usually walking around, so this is going to be a challenge. And if you see me sway away from the microphone, someone give me the cue to come back. So good morning, y'all. How are you?
Good.
Good. My name is Michelle Searcy, and I'm the new program coordinator for Comprehensive School Counseling. It's a real big, long title that means I work in support with school counselors throughout the state of Kentucky, and I'm in the Department of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. Our Dr. Tucker is typically here. He is our Chief Equity Officer and Deputy Commissioner. We really value student voice. In fact, your voice is the most important voice that we're going to hear all day. So thank you for taking time away from your school, for being here with us today, and giving us the gift of your voice. We really appreciate that. So how many of you, this is your very first time in the Sauer building?
Oh, it's amazing.
First time in this meeting? Me too. Me too. First time in this meeting. I've only been in the Sauer building a couple of times. So the feeling that you get when you come in here, how many of you were a little anxious? Like you didn't know what to expect? I wasn't anxious to meet you guys because honestly, when I left a school district, one of the things that I was most apprehensive about was leaving students. Like I want to stay connected to you all. I want to make sure that I'm constantly hearing your voice and it impacts my practices and how I work with schools moving forward. But that anxiety is real. And so we're going to talk about anxiety for just a minute. A second ago, Tony asked if anyone had any questions or comments for the commissioner. Did you have any type of reaction like, oh my gosh, I have to come up with something? Somebody say something. Somebody please say something. Your stomach gets a little anxious. Your minds are starting to whirl really quick and you're trying to figure out how to get something out of your mouth to sound intelligent. Or maybe not with that information, but maybe at a school. Maybe your teacher asks you a question and nobody's answering, or maybe everybody's answering and you're the only one not answering. That anxiety. Tell me about when you feel anxiety, what are some of the reactions your body has?
Heart races.
Your heart races. Good. Something else. Yeah.
You start shaking.
You're starting to shake. You get the jitters a little bit. Have you ever seen someone getting up to stand to talk in front of a group of people and their hands are shaking? And you just think, oh, take a deep breath, calm down. What's something else? So we've heard 2 physical attributions.
Hyperventilation.
Hyperventilation. All of a sudden you've lost your breath. You knew it was in there. It was there just a second ago, but it's not there now. It's coming too fast and you need to slow down a little bit. Hyperventilation, that's a good one. What about your thoughts? What happens to your thoughts? Yeah.
It's really hard to think.
I couldn't hear that.
I'm sorry. It's really hard to think.
Yeah, absolutely. What's,
Sorry, go ahead.
no. What's something else?
They just become like a lot more negative.
Your thoughts become negative. You get into this negative cycle. Have you done this before? I'm not going to pass this test. I'm not going to pass it. I studied all night. I know the content. It's not going to happen. I'm going to fail the class. I'm going to fail the test. I'm going to fail the class. I'm not going to college. Oh my God, I'm not going to college. What are my parents going to think? I have to get this score. You're laughing because it's true. It's happened. Those negative thoughts kind of hijack our brains, and we're not sure what to do with them. We got to get them calmed down. Okay, fellas, I've heard from a couple of our girls in the room. Let me hear from one of the guys.
It's like a cycle of pessimism, like you said, or maybe just getting pulled in different things instead of focusing on what you're nervous about.
I'm really glad you said that, because when we think about reactions to stress on our body, like we talked about the physical, we talked about the psychological, your mental thought process, but they don't just stay in categories, do they? They start to cycle around. One thing leads to another, leads to another. So, what about behavioral?
You start to forget things you know how to do already.
You forget things you know how to do already. Like you know this particular component. You know how to do it, but now that you have to do it in front of everybody or it has high stakes, it may be difficult. What about, how many have taken the ACT? Did you have any stress? Yep. Did you get on there? Can you think of a time during that test, like you had a question and you know the answer? You know the answer because you've studied it and you've talked about it 100 times. But when it got in front of you on that test, your mind just kind of went sideways. Anybody? What's some other behavioral things that you do when you're stressed? Yeah.
You start getting snippy with people.
Snippy. My husband would 100% agree with you. You start getting snippy with people, and usually it's the people that you care the most about, right? And you guys, you don't have to raise your hand. Just jump right in. I'm not formal at all. Your voice is more important than mine, so if you have something to add, just jump right in and give it. So, behavioral, you can start to get snippy with people. What's something else? One more.
You can also start to fidget.
Fidget.
With like your hands and stuff.
Yeah, you start to fidget. I tap my heels to music. Like I have songs playing in my head all the time because I love music, and everything you say instantly makes me think of a song. So when I'm sitting and I'm nervous, I tap my foot to the tune of a song. My husband plays this game where he tries to guess what tune I'm tapping. And he's right most of the time, and it annoys me. So we're going to talk about, one more. What about procrastination when you start to get nervous and anxious? Social media, all of a sudden, there was nothing on it a minute ago, but now that you have something to do, everything on social media looks so entertaining. Like you've seen a kitten jump off the top bookshelf a million times, but this time they did it with pizzazz. So you just get sucked into this loop of procrastination. Social media just draws you in, and all of a sudden you've wasted 2 hours and you haven't gotten anything done, and now you're more stressed than you was before. So, kids, students, you guys, tell me, what's something that you get stressed about in your life? Yeah. College applications. Anybody else stressed about college applications? Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? What's something that's stressing you out?
Trying to start a debate club and not having much support in it.
So you have something that you really want to accomplish at your school, and you just can't get the support behind you, and it's stressing you out. 100% feel it. What about this side of the room? Yes.
Finishing and like annotating books on time because I procrastinate. It's like the last 2 weeks and I have like 400 pages to read.
I've done that, and then it bumps your stress level right on up. Adults in the room. Adults in the room. What's something that stresses you out? Bills. I have a special place in my house for bills. It goes in a drawer, and I don't have to look at them, though I know they're there. Yes, bills stressing me out. Thank you. Something else from adults.
Scheduling. Yeah.
The news. You never know how someone's going to take what you say and chop it up, or you never know what type of negativity is going to come on your across your news feed. And not just news that you watch in front of a television, right? It's things that are popping up on your phone all the time. and you're constantly looking at bad stories that have happened, and it's just flooding your mind. One more.
So kind of scheduling, like the commissioner said, but also news, because in my role, it's really important, like the commissioner said, that, you know, you get that one piece of misinformation out there and you are just, it's like battling a fire that never goes out. So it's really important to get the good news out there and make sure people have the accurate information. So it's stressful when it doesn't come out that way.
I cannot imagine how stressful your job is, and I'm super glad that we have you doing it, and I'm over here talking to students. Because that stresses me out, and you guys can probably relate to that. If you've ever posted something on social media and you're thinking, why did I do that? Why did I do that? You take it down, or someone else has posted something about you, and now you don't know how to get that back in, and it can take you a long time to correct that. So we all know that our lives have stressful moments in it. The stress that you had at the beginning of the school year probably looks different than the stress you have right now. And the stress that you're going to have at midterms or at the end of the semester is going to look different than the stress you have right now. But our body reacts to stress in all different types of ways. And today I'm going to teach you a technique that's going to help you control some of those physical reactions that stress has on our body. Have you ever had at the end of the day that's been super stressful, like your shoulders hurt or your jaws hurt because you've scrunched your shoulders up so tightly, or you're clenching your teeth, that now all of a sudden your jaw's hurt and you have a headache? We're going to do something called progressive muscle relaxation. Have you heard it before? Yes? Good. One person has. Okay, so I'm going to teach you something new that you can do anywhere you are at if you're in a stressful situation, which will be probably before the end of the day, that you can do right in your seat and nobody will know. So it's a deep relaxation technique where we're going to tense up a certain part of our muscle, and we're going to hold it for 5 seconds, and then we're going to release it for a little bit longer than when we tensed up. And when we release it, we're going to release it real slow. What that's going to do is it's going to let your body know, it's going to trigger a memory that this is what my body is like when it's tense and when it is stressed. And what I want it to do is slowly relax so that I don't have physical aches and pains from the stress that my body is going under. Sound good? Okay, so there's 12 of these. We're not going to do that because I'll probably get kicked off the mic before then. So we're gonna do four muscles that we're gonna tense and then relax. There's 12 total, so maybe if you like it, you can let us know at the end of the day, and we'll do some more the next time. All right, so get in a comfy seating position. If you can, both feet on the floor. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. You can just make your gaze towards the floor. That way it kind of helps your brain focus on what you're doing right now and not what's going on around you. I'm also going to lower my voice because I'm a very animated speaker. I'm going to lower my voice and make it very calm. In between each of the prompts with a new muscle, you're going to hear about a 10-second pause. It's okay. I want that pause. I'm going to give you some things to think about. All right, are we ready? All right, right now, I want you to produce tension in your shoulders by bringing your shoulders up towards your ears as tight as you can without it causing you pain. I want you to focus on that tension in your shoulders and in your neck, and we're going to hold it for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now slowly relax those muscles, drop your shoulders while you remind yourself in your mind to relax. You want your shoulders to feel heavy, like a weight is on them and they're pulling it down to the ground. Concentrate on the feeling of your shoulders when you relaxed. Sit quietly and remind yourself to stay relaxed. Okay, next, we're going to produce tension around your neck by tilting your chin down towards your chest. You're going to feel the back of your neck pull like it's pushing into the wall behind you. I want you to focus on the tightness on the back of your neck and hold it for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now slowly release the tension and bring your neck up and concentrate on relaxing. Make sure you bring your shoulders down and your neck is in a comfortable position. Notice the difference between the tension and the relaxing. Sit quietly and remind yourself to stay relaxed. Right, next, we are going to produce tension around your mouth and jaw by clenching your teeth and pushing the corners of your mouth back. Feel the tension in your mouth and jaw and hold for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now slowly release the tension, allowing your mouth to fully relax and slightly open. Concentrate on the difference between the tension and the relaxation. As you sit quietly, remind yourself to relax. The last one we're going to do today is producing tension in your stomach by pulling your stomach tightly in towards your spine. Feel the tension and tightness and hold for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let your stomach go and relax outward. Feel the comfortable feeling of relaxing and notice the difference from when it was tense. As you sit quietly, remind yourself to relax. We are going to finish up with a few deep breaths. So I want you to put your hands, both hands on your stomach, like you have your hands in your hoodie. We're going to take 3 deep breaths, and when we do that, we're going to push our hands outward. So we want our breaths to stay focused on our stomach and not up high in our chest. So let's do that by inhaling in. Now slowly release out and push those hands outward. Okay, and another in. Exhale out, pushing your hands out. And then the last one in. And exhale out. All right. Something that I really want to talk to you about today before I leave is about suicide prevention. Suicide prevention is the whole month of September is the month that we devote to suicide prevention. And you guys have all participated in some type of suicide prevention since you were in 6th grade. When I was in my prior role, one of the most powerful things that I was able to do was pull a group of students and ask them for feedback about our suicide prevention program. What I thought I was going to hear, I thought students were going to tell me that they were tired of talking about suicide prevention. They had done it every year since they were in 6th grade, and can we just move on to something else? Like, that was my preconceived notion that I was going to hear from this group of students. But I heard the exact opposite. They told me that what they wanted was more, because the stress they had at the beginning of the year was very different than the stress they had at the middle of the year, and they had already forgotten what was taught to them at the beginning, and they wanted a refresher. So with this group, I would love to hear you all go to different schools all across our beautiful state, and you've had different experiences with suicide prevention. I would love to hear from you. What do you think is going well with suicide prevention? And what do you wish that we knew as adults about suicide prevention that you would like to see improved? Feel free to jump in. You do not have to raise your hand at all.
I can start with my school. So I go to Manual, which is in Jefferson County. And for our suicide prevention, we have to watch the same required videos every single year. And because of that, a lot of the students really don't pay attention. We're all kind of just on our phones because it's the same information and it's not being communicated in an effective way. And I feel like the best parts of suicide prevention are when the teacher like takes initiative to have a class conversation where we actually talk about our feelings.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So what I hear you say is the suicide prevention material that you're presented, it's stale. You've seen it, and when you've seen it over and over again, the same video, it becomes stale and you kind of check out. And what you're really wanting is more engagement from the adults in the room, not a video on a screen. Did I capture that correctly?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I agree with what she was saying. At our school, we also have to watch video, not just for suicide prevention, but for other topics such as bullying or anything. And like, it's just not a memorable experience. And the lesson and like what we're supposed to learn, most students don't take that away from the video. I feel like if we had more of like an interactive experience, like in school, like the classes where I'm able to interact more is what I'm the best at. So likewise, if we had a memorable experiences with those lessons, more students will take them seriously and be able to learn what they have to from those.
Thank you so much for sharing. So what I think I hear you say, correct me if I'm wrong, you, like our friend over here, you want participatory learning. You want to engage in the learning. You don't want to just sit and get. You want an opportunity to have dialogue with your peers and with the teacher in the classroom so that you can be a part of the learning, not the learning is thrown at you.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
More of like maybe something, even like something that happens live rather than just like something pre-recorded which everyone sees. Like
Yeah.
everyone is unique and that same video won't help everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I think. Was someone else gonna speak?
Oh, you can go ahead. We can let others speak too.
I think one of the main problems is that with the suicide prevention training also has depression prevention or, and I feel like the counselors almost don't take it seriously, where at our school, it feels like if you complain about anything, then they just tell you to breathe more and that you're not getting enough exercise, etc. And then other students kind of make fun of it, they say it's dumb, and it feels like you should be embarrassed about needing help in that instance.
Thank you for sharing. So what I hear you say is you need other strategies besides just breathing deep. Breathing deep is great. It gives us oxygen in our brain, which helps slow things down. But that's not all we need. Sometimes we need way more than that, and we need additional strategies and even connection to some more intensive support when we reach out and we say, hey, we're struggling. Thank you for sharing.
I think it's important to recognize the stigma that is around mental health, and in the video that we were presented this year, it did not refer to suicide as suicide, it referred to it as someone killing themselves, and it really took away the fact that it's an illness, and it's more out of our control than people may think. So I think the language needs to change to someone died by suicide, someone is experiencing depression instead of someone's doing it to themselves.
Thank you. So what I hear you say is that we don't need to beat around the bush. Call it what it is. We're trying, your generation in particular has worked really hard from my standpoint to dismantle those negative views around mental health. It's the older generation sometimes that struggles, right? Your generation talks about mental health much more freely than what the older generation does. And I hear you say, call it what it is. If someone commits suicide, say they've died by suicide. Link that to what's really going on in the background with mental health issues, depression. That is great feedback. Thank you so much for sharing. One more. Yes.
My school, McCracken County High School, has posters around the school that discourage suicide, but we invite also frequent guest speakers to talk on like motivational speeches like discouraging suicide and empowering students. So I think that might be a method in other schools that could be implemented to benefit those students struggling with depression.
Thank you so much. So what I hear you say is that it's not a one and done. This needs to be a continuous conversation that we have with students, and we need to do it in different avenues. Like, a video is not gonna cut it. You have to do a video, you have to give us good strategies, you have to engage us in our learning, and we want ongoing learning and reminders about mental health and how to take care of our mental health. Thank you. All right, you guys. Oh, yes.
I just had a question. If you guys, I'm not sure because it's been a while since I've visited my school. My son's been out of school for a couple of years, but do you all have? Do they provide like barcodes or like QR codes for in like places like bathrooms and stuff where if you need help, that you can kind of privately request that?
Yes.
Yes.
So show of hands, yes and no. Okay, show of hands, no. Okay, so I'd just love to know, is that helpful? Do you think that that would be helpful, or do you not think that would be, where you can privately request help, and if you have requested help, are you receiving that help? Go ahead.
Well, I've filled out the form a few times, and it's always been a case where they have multiple choice options on the form instead of letting you describe what you need. And it's kind of like, just make sure you know that we might not actually help you. We might just let your form sit and then not talk to you because we're busy. So that's been quite an issue.
I know some people, they take the form down. Like, I don't see the form in there anymore. I know some people have used it. I haven't, but I don't see the form in there. Like, I've seen it maybe twice this year. I haven't seen it like after like the first week of school. So I don't know where it went.
Interesting. Somebody else, yeah, go ahead.
I think it's like a lot about how students have to express themselves. I think that there are like two groups of students, one that feel comfortable filling out a form and seeing a QR code, and then others that want to describe and talk about their feelings. And I don't think that the QR code is reaching that audience of students. And I think that's pretty important because it's kind of split more 60-40, where there's more students that feel comfortable talking than actually filling out a form. And I feel like rather than having forms around, schools should have counselors maybe going into classes and kind of doing like a space check to make sure that everybody in those classes are doing okay, and if not, that they have a way to actually meet up with them and describe it, because a lot of the high school counselors are less about social emotional health and a lot more about academics, class changes, and college applications.
I can kind of offer the similar side that we have a form at my school, but it's a combination of the multiple choice and the filling in, where we have multiple choice of all the counseling staff in our school. So we have the mental health specialist and the college career coach. So you, in the same form, you're asking for both career help, like you're saying, and then mental health help in the same form. And then kind of what you were saying, it has a fill-in, which is what you want to talk about. So I think, yes, that having the form would be good. And I think my school, I feel as though is has a good system for offering for all those needs to a large population. I think we're over 2,000.
I'd like to. I come from a pretty small school with a high school of like 300, and so even though the form's there and it's like accessible, I guess you could say the stigma around it is you might get a 5-minute or 10-minute session with. Let me just kind of lay out our administration. One principal, one guidance counselor, no assistant, no college and career coach, like that's it. And so you might get a 5 to 10-minute session within a week or two with the guidance counselor. And then we have the mental health therapist or counselor, whatever you want to call it, but they're district wide. And even though our district's in one parking lot, there's elementary students who need help and middle school students. And so you don't want to like choose them. And even the other day we were talking about it in class, and half this class of seniors who have been here, for all of high school didn't even know she existed. Like, didn't even know she was there. They were like, who is she? And we were like, oh, that's, the mental health therapist. And they were like, oh, I didn't know she was here. And so, like, unfortunately, the resources are kind of scarce. And even if you get in, the guidance counselor she's really busy. She's acting as a guidance counselor, as the career, as an assistant principal at times. And so nobody's upset with her, but it's just hard to, like, get the time to actually talk about it. And you don't know who to talk to, and then you just got to wait. And then I feel like after you wait a few days, you're kind of like, well, I don't think I should have done that. I was overreacting. Like, you'll talk yourself out of it, basically.
So scarcity of resources has a really large impact.
Another thing is, like, having access to resources, like having mental health clinicians, like, on hand at schools and stuff, but also just knowing that the resources are there. Because, like, at some school districts, there's someone there, they have the title and they have the job, but no one knows who they are or what they're doing. So you have to, like, brand and say, this person's here to do this job. Because sometimes then their resources are there, but they're not used adequately.
Sounds like it would be helpful to have that information in the suicide prevention training, and maybe even posted like we talked about with forms, so that students are reminded these are the people that can help if they have that staff, to your point. Some school districts don't have as many support staff as others. So you guys tell me on time.
Yeah, we have one more, and then I think we'll move on, because
Okay.
I see our next person's here, so.
So I just wanted to talk about my experience. I feel like my experience was a bit different because in my school we do not have as many resources. We do not have QR codes, and actually, besides watching a video, we must complete a form that isn't. You have multiple questions. However, it's really long, and it looks more like a test that actually about learning about suicide prevention. The first time I did it, I didn't even know it was about that. I just saw it as a word that I had to do. I didn't really learn, and it wasn't until days after we started talking with some of my friends about it. So it was a really different experience. This year we did watch a video. I know that we have to complete that form probably like within this week or the next one. Besides, I would like to talk kind of like about the resources. It is really hard to go to mental sessions whenever you need to talk with your counselor, because in my case, in my personal experience, the teachers were really hard whenever you needed to go. They will not understand at all that you needed to talk in that moment. So it was really hard. Oh no, you need this note. Oh no, you missed this class. Even though you were doing the classwork and you were not missing anything, it was really hard. They were not allowing you to go, which was really, not great.
Comes back to that access that we were talking about, being able to have access to help when you need it, and maybe shortening the form.
Yeah.
So it's not so daunting to complete. Thank you guys for letting me be a part of your advisory committee today. I appreciate the gift of your voice and all the information that you have given to me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next month.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so the next item on the agenda is we have Judy Vandahar with our Safe and Supportive Schools branch in our Division of Student Success in our Office of Continuous Improvement and Success. And I will let her, we are going to do a little bit of a training. It's called Sources of Strength, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Tony.
We'll need you to talk into the microphone if you can. Okay. We need to get the lavalier mic.
Get your back.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, and they're mailed.
It's stuck. Okay.
I don't know.
Right. So, good morning. My name is Judy, also known as Dr. Vanderhart. I will share just a little bit about myself so that, because I'll be spending, it was supposed to be an hour, but maybe 45 minutes
You're
now.
fine.
So, let's see. I do work at KDE, but I was a substitute teacher for 6 years, and I myself was a student. I don't know if you all know about the Teenage Parents School, but at 16 I had a child. And Jefferson County had a Teenage Parents School, which helped save my life. My son that I had at 16 is a Manual graduate, and he's now a UK graduate, and he's a programmer. So there is hope. We cannot give up on anyone, right? And then I started studying sociology because I wanted to figure out what planet did I land on. Like, I wanted to figure out what was going on because a lot of things didn't make sense to me that are happening in our world. And the more I learned about it, the more I got curious. And as I was substitute teaching as a part-time job, you know, I understood that all of these institutions, all of our social problems are interconnected. So our schools simply reflect our society, right? I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. And so I decided this is where I'm going to focus my efforts, and that's why I pursued my PhD, so that I can figure out how can I get inside the institution itself, where decision makers are, to help make some, you know, initiate as much change and support as I could. From my perspective, having grown up in a very traumatic environment as a child, and then having the aftermath to pick up those pieces. So I'm very excited to and feel very honored to be able to share with you today about sources of strength. Some of the other work that I do is around dropout prevention. So how can, you know, utilizing all of the data we have on each student, actually using artificial intelligence, also known as machine learning, to help schools very quickly identify students that are in need of support. I could speak for hours and hours about that tool, but the favorite thing that I get to do here is training adults on trauma, how we support students. There's no person on the planet that has not experienced trauma, including adults. So the other thing I do is mental health first aid, because our adults are still catching up, right? And you talked about stigma. One of the most important things about that training is to reduce stigma, because we've been socialized that way. And then sources of strength. So how many of you all know what sources of strength is or have that at your school? Awesome. Does anyone want to share their experience about it? Has it been helpful?
I really like ours because you get to be in the club and you get to do all of these like cool assemblies with the entire school, well, like grade levels, because we can't fit in one place. But you get to make posters, and you really get to spread the word about loving each other and being friendly to each other and not being afraid to tell your teachers if something's going on and stuff like that.
Beautiful. And what I'm hearing you say, oh yes, please.
So also, like, I'm not in Sources of Strength, but I have friends in it, and like they come to the classrooms and speak to us. I think it's really great. Like, I might end up joining it. They've been recruiting me, so I might try to be joining it. Sounds great.
Awesome. Yes. So as you all were just talking with Michelle around some of the limitations around support in your school among adults and kind of the limited resources and capacities that exist. And while there's a tremendous amount of stress and suffering among everyone, adults and students alike, one of the beautiful things about Sources is that it's student-led. It is student-led because you all are the help, hope, and strength of your peers. So that is why I think it's so empowering, because you all can support lifting each other up and being that connector to help, whether it's professional help. But there's so much we can do on the front end to prevent kind of, you know, the worst outcomes that we are unfortunately seeing. Are you okay? Okay. All right, so. Oh, thank you, Megan. Love Megan. I love me some Megan. She's amazing. All right. Can you hear me? Okay. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time on the wheel, and I have this handout for you all in a little bit, but we're gonna talk a little bit about just some background. So this training is actually 4 hours with students and 4 hours with the adults. So the adults go first. The way it works is there's some adult advisors kind of supporting students, but students lead it. And you all have tremendous amount of intelligence. And the beautiful thing also about Sources is that it promotes and nurtures your creativity. So creativity is intelligence having fun. So there's fun parts. So each gathering of the peer leaders, there's one part fun, one part sharing, and then one part actually brainstorming and implementing curriculum in your classrooms, in your schools, to inform students around Sources. So as I know I'm saying a lot, and I apologize, I am talking fast, but there's a lot I want to get to. And as we spend time over this period, hopefully it makes more sense. So we start with, I don't know if you all can see this. We start with a parable, okay? So clearly I have very little skill in art, okay? I have no shame. So there's a parable of a village, and in the village there is a stream. The village sits alongside a stream, and there's a waterfall. One of the wise elders in the village got up one morning and is walking along the river's edge, and she hears somebody screaming. So she walks to where the river's edge is, and she jumps in and pulls that person out. Okay, does CPR. Everyone in the village learns about what happened. They're celebrating. Great, right? So then the next morning, she's walking along the river's edge, and what does she hear? Another scream. Jumps in, pulls out, right? So this goes on. So multiple mornings she's jumping in, and she's noticing more and more people right here along the waterfall's edge. So the townspeople get together, and what do they start doing? They start planning, putting watchtowers at the waterfall's edge, right? Training everyone in CPR. And unfortunately, in the world of in our systems, that's kind of what we are doing right now, right? We're doing a lot of things to kind of address situations in crisis, right? Where the kids are at the waterfall's edge. Sources of Strength is an evidence-based, and it's a global. It's in multiple countries, but it has shown evidence to actually prevent students from really terrible outcomes, okay? So I forgot the rest of the parable. The woman, all the village people are at the end of this waterfall, and she starts walking upstream, and they're all like, "Where are you going? Why are you leaving? We need all hands on deck situation." And she's walking. She said, "I'm going to go upstream and figure out what's happening. Why they're falling in to begin with." And that's where Sources of Strength kind of supports primarily, is an upstream model of prevention. But it also does support when interventions happen, they need to happen, and also after traumatic events, right, at the school or with individual students. So it's really a culture changing. It's really focused on improving a nurturing culture around what are the sources of strength. When Michelle asked about stressors, and I called out the news, you know, I could share tons of statistics about all of the terrible things happening, but I do not have to waste my time doing that. So we know all of the challenges that are happening in the world. And so I could also talk to you, and then a lot of times, even in some of the trainings we do, we spend a lot of time on the sources of trauma, right? So things that are very sad, right, on the news, right? Shocking things, sad things, traumatic things. And oftentimes, when we're telling stories, we focus 80% on that sad, shock, trauma, and 20% on what helped us get through that. Sources really encourages us to focus only 20% on the terrible things going on and what is hurting us, and 80% on what helps us get through it. So do you see it's like really a paradigm shift, right? Okay. So I also want to talk about, I'm not going to be redundant about what are some of the stressors that your peers might be experiencing, but about the continuum of stress. Does anyone know about the biosphere dome? Anyone want to share what? If not, I'll keep moving because we're going to get into some activities. So the biosphere was, it's a dome, right? It was in the Arizona desert, so scientists wanted to study the interacting aspects of natural life. And they noticed, so this was a contained environment, and they noticed that the trees that were planted kept falling over. Does anyone have any idea why that might be? Yeah.
Their roots weren't sturdy enough.
The roots weren't sturdy. Yes, that's one of the reasons. Now, why weren't the roots sturdy and growing deep into the ground?
They're not native to that area.
Well, that's one.
Oh.
Yeah. There was no wind in this contained environment. And the trees need the wind, they need that pressure to develop those deep roots. So when I talk about the continuum of stress, right, stress is not always bad. It is a natural part of life. So there is a continuum of stress. So we have positive stress, right? What's an example of positive stress? If you're taking a test, that stress, that little pressure, right? Stress is such a big umbrella term. It's really pressure, right? That pressure helps you study. That's kind of an example of positive. And then in the kind of middle of the continuum, you have tolerable. So that would be like a breakup, right? It's really painful, really, really painful. But if you have support around you, that's going to help buffer that source of stress. On the far end is what a lot of folks are dealing with right now. It's called toxic, and that is when the stressors continue, and there are no buffers, right? There are no buffers, and you can't turn off. It doesn't turn off. We are empowered to turn it off. But the conditions that so many young people live in, and also the conditions within our system, being very overwhelmed and under-resourced, and then you include the aftermath of the pandemic. I said I wasn't going to throw stats at you, but a report just came out, and I would encourage you to look it up, from the Center for Reinventing Public Schools. They partnered with Arizona State, and they looked at what is actually the state of the American student right now in the fall of 2020. And 8 out of 10 schools reported very much disruptions in the social and emotional aspect of schooling and in young people. But I would also argue that is the case in adults because they also experience the isolation and the stressors of the pandemic. So we were already struggling. I want to go into more data, but I won't. I spent a lot of time in academia, and the one thing I like about Sources is that it's focused on solutions. In academia, a lot of times, and a lot of my research focused on what the problem was, but not what can we do to address it. You all are the hope of, a motto in the district I came from, Jefferson, our motto is shaping the future, and that's not a motto. You literally are shaping our future. You are the help, hope, and strength of the future. So we're going to get into some activities. But I'd also wanted to, let's see, we're going to pass out some Post-its. Sure, that would be great. Thank you. And you all should have some pens. If you want to just pass them around.
One for each?
Yeah, just one for each.
You can take one back.
I'll go to the side.
Oh, there's no pen. Okay.
They were in their little bag.
Oh, they're in your bags?
Prodigious note taker. You found that to be useful in school life or just taking notes?
I don't know, notes are my one forte in school, so I guess anytime we do lectures and stuff.
Yeah. always heard that writing things actually.
Yes.
Anyone needs a pen, just raise your hand.
That's one thing. Dr. Serge.
Thank you.
Power of writing, how it helps with
I don't know if I, sure.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for that support. All right. Another thing that I want to share, and I don't know if you all can see, but I'll try to explain it. This is called the window of tolerance, right? It's kind of our optimal state. Now, when you've experienced trauma, which I want to clarify, there's all these big definitions of trauma. It's basically what overwhelms you and your ability to cope. I like thinking about trauma as it's not what happens to you, it's what's happening inside of you because of what's happening to you. Trauma is not an event, it's a living process. It's actually stored in our cellular memory. So there's also ancestral trauma that we have learned through neuroscience research, that it's, the trauma from our ancestors, right? They've even looked through 13 generations is living in your DNA through epigenetics. But I'm going to try to stay on topic. The point is that sometimes we get activated by things we don't even understand. But it happens, right? So, but our optimal window, right? Life is up and down. That's just part of reality. That's part of life. But there are two impacts of trauma. And also there's individual trauma experiences we go through, but also collectively. We are interdependent. So another interesting factoid from HeartMath research is that when I'm in conversational proximity to you, your heartbeat is registering in me right now, and mine and yours. So, you all know we have senses. You can see things, you hear things, but you also feel things, right? You feel energy. So we have an optimal state. When you've experienced trauma, that window, your window of tolerance is a little smaller. When you're experiencing a lot of stress, your window is smaller. Now, there are two impacts of toxic stress and trauma. One is we get hyper intense stress, right? And that can look like agitation, a blow up. We do something we end up regretting, right? That's when we go out of our window of tolerance. The other impact of trauma is numbness. It's hypo, right? It's shutting down, okay? These are all normal. And actually, trauma is a very intelligent function. We are living biocomputers. It's very intelligent that if I grow up with violence, I learn how to tune out. I learn how to numb. But as I get older, that numbness, I learn how to hold my fear. That can kind of keep me, as I'm older, from moving forward with doing things that I want to do. So when we look at society, so this is for individuals, we can shut down and become lethargic and feel depressed, or we go the other way, right? And we do things we regret, we blow up. But on the societal scale, we see this, right? As kind of up here, we see a lot of violence, right? It's part of our reality, violence, crazy things happening. And then on the bottom part, the shutdown, we see a lot of apathy. Are you all ever like, where's the outcry? Where's the urgency to deal with some of these things, right? I know you are because, yes. So the beautiful thing about the window of tolerance is that we can come back, right? Where there's things we can do to come back in the window, and we can help each other come back in the window. So what I want you to kind of write on your paper, and this is kind of anonymous, is being very honest, because this is going to I want you to write down what takes you as an individual, even if you don't understand what's happening, what takes you out of your window of tolerance, whether it's moving up or moving down into shutting down. What specific I don't like the word triggers, but what specifically activates you to get out of your own window? Just write it down on that Post-it and then crumble up the Post-it. Now, if we were in a classroom, I would have you throw them around the room, but we're not going to do that. And I know you all might need a break at some point, so I don't know if this is a natural breaking point or.
Yeah. Tell me after they complete this activity, what's next?
We're going to do some sharing, and then we're going to look at the sources of strength and do some posters.
Why don't we have folks complete this on their own, take a break on their own, and let's come back. When do you, maybe 10:35? Is that too much time, enough time?
I'm not sure what else is on the agenda, but maybe 10:30.
10:30. Okay, you've got 8 minutes. So.
Okay, so if you can, you know what? I'm gonna stand here, and when you walk out, the restrooms are. If you walk out of these doors, you go to the right, and that's where the restrooms are.
And if that one gets full, the building's like symmetrical, so there's one on the other side.
Yes. My first week I came, I walked in the men's bathroom. I was so nervous. I walked in the men's bathroom and I got some looks. So crumple up your paper, your Post-it, and when if you decide to leave or if not, just go ahead and throw it in here. And as you'll see, you have a crumpled Post-it on your in front of you. So if you don't mind, go ahead and open it up.
Do what? No. Oh, I started to, but then.
Oh, that's fair. We were off one. Okay. You might. Hopefully, you don't have yours. Hopefully, they're mixed up. But if you do, that's fine too. Just go ahead and look at what one of your peers wrote around what takes them out of their optimal state. Does anyone want to share? First of all, is there anything that surprised you? Does anyone want to share? Can we get a couple of people to read their peers? Yes.
Being overwhelmed from school.
Overwhelmed.
And then arguments with friends.
Arguments with friends. Drama. Doesn't stop in high school. Yes.
Mine says loss of control over my surroundings or situations.
Loss of control. That's an awful feeling. Yes.
Bad grades and bad soccer games.
Bad grades and bad soccer games. Yes.
Other people's negative behaviors.
Other people's behavior, right. Yes.
Someone starting to yell or insisting that they're incorrect.
Somebody yelling,
Reminders.
insisting they're correct.
Reminders of grief.
Trauma reminders, grief reminders, yeah. Very real. So, the point of that is that we are not alone, right? And there are a lot of very real things, some things that you all might not even feel comfortable sharing, right? What we're going to do, and because this is what Sources is revolved around, right? I do personally think that we need many more spaces for young people to process together because of the capacity and resource issue. I don't know how many of you all have any peer support groups in your school. Raise of hands, none? That's one of the lowest hanging fruits that we can do to support young people. That there's a safe space where you all can process, because there is a need to process and digest, right? We just keep moving forward and forward and forward, and that has a cost, right? So we need opportunities to digest and to process and see we're not alone. There's a reason that the 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, but they have a whole bunch of those, are so effective, very effective at supporting people in recovery. So hopefully that's something that you all could advocate. I know that Dr. Sweeney and our new awesome counselor lead, Michelle, are aware of that, but there's so much power in that. And you know, with Sources of Strength, hopefully you all could advocate to get this in your school too. But you don't need this program to advocate for those types of things. Okay, so what we're going to do now before we get into the actual wheel of the sources is we're going to group in four, and it's fine. Do you all know each other? Probably not very well. Okay, so that's cool. What?
Yeah,
You're
some of
from
them do,
everywhere,
but
right?
Some of them do, but they're pretty split out from last year and this year. So I think you'll be in good shape.
Okay, so we're going to do this quickly. And so if I would like for you to get in groups of 4. Each of you pick a corner on the Post-it, and we have markers to pass out. So if you want to just stay where you are, everyone picks a corner. I don't know if I can get some help.
And Judy, you're doing fine on time. Don't feel like you have to rush. You're doing fine on time.
Okay. There's like another activity that I want to do with you all.
This is very helpful, and
Okay.
I want them to get the experience.
Okay.
So.
And you know what? I feel bad that I have been talking at you because I know how much absolute wisdom that you all have. And so I'm sorry that I'm not listening and I'm talking more, but I'm excited to share some of this that I know some of you all already know. But if we can get maybe every 4 group of students posted, and we have markers here. And what I want you to do is draw or write down, but you can see how my art is. So just feel free to, actually both of my sons are artists, so it's interesting. When you're out of your window, when you're out of your optimal state, when you get activated, when you're overwhelmed and you don't feel like you can cope or you don't want to move forward, what helps bring you back into your window? What are your sources of strength that you draw from to help you come back to a baseline? Does that make sense? So it could be anything, people, places, activities, anything like that. What brings you back into a state of feeling okay? I loved what I'm seeing, which is a lot of the things that are on this wheel: music, sunshine, reading, taking a break, talking to friends, being with each other, connecting. I saw therapy, food, my favorite. Lots of sports, music, violence, social interaction, right? Here's the thing, trauma, and I'm talking about all levels, right? It happens through inappropriate and hurtful relationships, and healing really only happens through relationship, through healthy relating, okay? And our culture is not very good at that, right? But it is healing. And so I'm going to share, if you can take one and pass down. This is a brochure for Sources of Strength for the peer leaders. And if your school is interested, we can train your school for free. But again, it's student-led. And we encourage schools to provide space during the day so that everyone can participate. And you all agree that bad things spread through networks? Yes?
Thank you.
So do positive things. And that's the point of this. So basically, you get a group of students who represent all the different kind of groups in your schools as bridges, including the students who are isolated, right, who are sitting alone. And so this is peer-led. These are the sources of strength. So I will briefly, if you open up all the way, this is the wheel. The founder of Sources worked in juvenile justice and had realized after working in there has to be a better way. He actually developed this in North Dakota with the Lakota tribe. So it's kind of rooted in the medicine wheel, which is kind of cool. There's a lot of wisdom there, right? But if you look here, a lot of things that you all have on your posters are connected specifically to this wheel. When we talk about family support, they can be a source of support, but also a great source of stress, right? And we talk about chosen family too, because I don't know if you know, Kentucky is one of the highest states in foster care. Foster care is one of the #1 sources of income in some of our counties. So when we talk about family support, we also talk about chosen family, which goes to the next wheel, positive friends. How many of you all have been a positive friend to someone else? All right. How many of you all have been a negative friend to someone else at some time? All right. Thanks for the honesty, you all. Because, you know, we can be both, right, at times. But positive friends are really important because there's so much influence that you all have on each other. Mentors, right? Trusted adults. That's a campaign that a lot of Sources schools do. Having a trusted adult. So hopefully everyone has a trusted adult. I will put in a plug for the Student Voice School Climate Data that is available if you all ever want to do project around that. You can look at what % of kids in Kentucky say they have an adult to talk to when they have a problem. Don't just look at the %, look at the number. Calculate the number that of individual students that do not have an adult to talk to. And there are ways to connect, there are ways to actually identify those students. That's another training. All right, healthy activities. A lot of you all have healthy activities on there. We know we can also engage in unhealthy activities and how we feel after we do that, right? So healthy activities is one of the most important ways to empower yourself and your peers to bring you back into your baseline, right? Just all the things that you all said. Physical activity, so that's also on this wheel. Generosity, lots of interesting research around how supportive generosity is. I'm kind of flying through this because I know like our time is running all the way out. When we're generous with others, we're generous with ourselves because we, again, are inextricably linked with each other. So the next one is spirituality, which we don't often get to talk about. And we're not talking about religion. For some students and people, spirituality is connected to religion, right? It could be going to church or a mosque. However, we talk about spirituality as what lifts your spirits, right? So a lot of the things on this wheel lift your spirits and make you feel connected to something greater. We are such powerful, amazing beings. And spirituality is what connects you to something greater. I see some of you put walking in nature. We actually are nature, right? We don't have a life. We are life itself, which is pretty cool. So the next two we talk about in Sources as connected, mental health and physical health. You know, we have too many, we are separating these things too often. These are dimensions of well-being that are connected. So when you're physically feeling unwell, a lot of times you're emotionally feeling unwell, but we also know you can have very bad kind of like you're struggling with mental health or have a mental illness. And you can have you're in a good place and you can no matter where you are on the continuum, you can continue to work towards optimal state of well-being. Our social, emotional, physical, spiritual, all of these are dimensions of ourselves that are interconnected. So these are the sources of strength. So very quickly, if you can just turn to a partner and share what are 2 sources of strength that you feel good in right now, that you feel strong in. Because the more we have, the better protected we are. What are 2 sources you feel strong in? And what is one area that you want to grow in this school year? If you can turn to a partner and just share quickly what are 2 you feel good in and 1 that you want to grow in. All right, one of my favorite things to get people back together is I say waterfall, waterfall, and you say shh. Waterfall, waterfall. Okay, so soothing, right? I love rain. I was gonna do that activity too, but we probably don't have time. So does anyone want to share? I had a beautiful gentleman talk about he wants to work on generosity this year, which can look, like I was saying, so many different things, right? It could be a smile, you know, a friendly smile. That's being generous. Anyone want to share their strengths or their partner's strengths and what they want to work on?
I feel like I'm pretty good with generosity this year. Maybe I want to work on my spirituality. I'm kind of confused with that right now, so.
It can be very confusing, and I agree. So, yes, a lot of us have experienced, I would say, religious trauma. That's just the reality of what we understand around trauma. So, again, anything that lifts your spirits or helps you feel connected. I would love to talk with you after if you would like. It's my favorite area on the wheel. Helped save my life many times. Anyone else?
I think my strong ones are family support and spirituality. And then I like to work on generosity.
Generosity, beautiful. And I think it's very generous for you all what you're doing here. Because I know taking time out causes a little more maybe stress around catching up for what you're missing. But it's very generous for you all to do what you're doing here and advocating for what you and your peers need. Did you want to share?
Oh, yeah. So I said that I'm pretty strong in family support and healthy activities. Even though I personally mix family support and positive friends because I consider my parents my best friends, so I kind of like mix those. And I feel like I should work in generosity maybe.
Nice. Generosity. I love it, love it, love it. All right, now we are going to do a 2-minute game and then one more activity, and then I unfortunately will have to say goodbye. I wish I could stay here all day. So we usually do this standing up. If you can pick a partner next to you, this will make it easier, and turn your back to your partner. And you're going to change one thing about your appearance. I know you guys are really confused. You're going to change one thing about your appearance. It could be moving your hair to one side or unbuttoning a button or anything. Just one thing. There's a point to this silly game. If you could just pick a person next to you and say, you're my person, turn your back and make one change. One change to your physical appearance. All right, waterfall, waterfall. Shh. I love that. All right, how many of you are able to kind of detect the change? It was one subtle change, right? Raise your hand if you could detect the change in your partner. Okay. The point of this game is that in mental health first aid for adults, we say it is up to adults to notice changes, right? When we're talking about preventing anybody from spiraling, right? It's up to notice when we see changes that are problematic, right? That we're concerned about, and connect that person to help. So similarly for you all, it's important to notice changes in your peers. And so when we talk about risks, we're talking about noticing changes in physical appearance, emotions, right? If you can see. So looking at intensity of the change and how long the change is occurring, right? If it's like withdrawing from everything, a very quick change in mood, it could be either on the up or the down, right? So the point of that game, and again, I'm flying through this really fast, is that it's important to notice. Now, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do, you have a piece of paper. I'm going to ask you to fold it in half and open it back. And it's very simple. You're going to write down on the top, this is a trust me plan. This is a trust me plan. Some people call it my safety plan. I like to call it my trust me plan. Because of all the mistakes that I've made and all of the things that I've encountered and had to deal with, including a lot of things around mental health, and all the stuff that goes along with that. I trust myself, the self that gets back up. So this is the trust me plan. And like I said, some people call it the safety plan. Some of our choices result in good outcomes, and the other choices result in us learning something. You can trust that. Trust your choices, right? You're going to either learn something or you're going to have a good outcome. But this is a trust me plan. On the left-hand side, I want you to write down 3 things. Some of them might have been on your poster. That when you are out of your window or when you are spiraling, what are 3 things that you can do to support yourself? This could be immediate. This could be splashing cold water on your face, which actually has been shown to be very helpful in bringing you back. It could be placing my attention just where my feet are instead of spiraling out into a story, into a projection into the future. Can I be where my feet are? It could be taking a drink of water, or it could be, you know, any of the things that can help bring you back if you're spiraling, right? 3 things for yourself. On the right column, this is going to be 3 people you can reach out to when you're struggling, whether it's a trusted adult at your school, whether it's the 988 helpline or the 741-741 text crisis line. Hopefully you all know all of that. Hopefully that's been drilled down. But 3 people that you can go to when you're spiraling. And this is, I mean, you all might already have this knowledge, but this is something that you can encourage your peers to do and to always have that with you, right? Because it's really easy, as Michelle talked about, our brain, our amygdala is hijacking our prefrontal cortex, right? The area of the brain where we can problem solve and think logically, right? We're in fight, flight, freeze, or please, some of us. But it's hijacked that. So it's hard to remember. Somebody said memories becomes a problem. It's hard to remember that. So I actually have this list in my kitchen for me, for the days that I'm at home. So that, I mean, there's more that I could go into, but yes, when on the next thing that you do during your time here with the commissioner and Tony, if you all may want to think about brainstorming, I think it would be a beautiful gift of generosity if one of your projects were about how can you promote some of these sources of strength at the KDE level, right? At the state level, how can you promote young people and even adults, because adults are really suffering too. How can you promote these sources of strength? So even just picking one and have a campaign around that. So I'll just plant that little seed. Maybe that's something you all want to consider. But I thank you so much for your time and for your attention and for engaging and for, just being you and helping make this world a better place. So thank you.
All right, so now we are going to move into our, so some of you may have been here for the May 30th Student Advisory Council. It was virtual, not here, but with us in spirit, on the discussion activity on student voice. Raise your hand if you were part of that discussion. Okay, so what we've done the last couple of years, it started about 2 school years ago, is the Student Advisory Council has kind of worked on we'll call it like a passion project of some sort. And 2 years ago, it was a mental health project teamed with Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman. And I don't know if any of you were in your schools when they did these groups with students at schools to get just feedback on mental health support at the high school level and lower, but mainly the feedback was aimed at middle and high schools. So that was like the project. They ended up presenting it to media. It was all over the place. They went to the legislature. Last year, stemmed by the school shooting in Uvalde, they worked on a school safety brief. It was kind of like a white paper, so it's very research-based, very great product that was put out. and they presented that in January to actually Representative Tipton was here in the audience, and they had a ton of media in the building that day. So I have no idea when I invite media if they're going to come or not, but there was a lot of interest in that. And within that white paper, there was recommendations on from students on what they felt could change before an incident, after an incident, and then during an incident. So that is something that is on the website. You guys can go back and look at if you were not part of. So just two examples of projects that this advisory council has done before. So when we polled the advisory council in the spring on activities that they would like to work on, they wanted to do something that just elevates the student voice across the state. I don't know if Rima, you want to, or Bentley, if you want to describe, just to take a minute or two from your perspective on that. And then what we're going to do is break into two groups. I'm going to tell you the breakout real quick. So from Bentley to Reese, we're going to go over into the commissioner's conference room with Commissioner Glass. And then Bentley to Reese. And then from Rima to, is it Owen? We'll stay here with, is Dr. Sweeney still here? Okay, there he is. You were hiding behind RJ there. Dr. Sweeney will be in here, and we'll do the group work. But Rima or Bentley, if you'd like to share a little bit more about the project and what your hopes are with that.
Yeah.
Make sure you get the microphone there.
Okay. This is a little. Okay, so I think as we all know, student voice is very, very broad, and especially with this council, we all hope to just elevate our voices, because in decision making, students are really never taken into account. So with this breakout time, we really just want to discover what student voice we want to work on. So this could be a research project across the state where we interview students at different schools in different counties, or this can be maybe something more of a research report, a policy brief on what our effective means for elevating student voice. So yeah, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think you got it. I think we're just trying to figure out what is student voice and how does that better reflect on the students across Kentucky.
And how can we as a council help elevate that?
Yeah. So really just the group work is just brainstorming some ideas. It's not you're not getting a grade on it or anything like that. We want you to have fun with this project. It's something that we'll work on over the next several months. There's not really a deadline right now established. I just want you guys to feel like you have ownership in that, and then we at the department are here to support you in whatever you would like to do as a group. So we'll go ahead and break into groups, give you let's say about 11:15 we'll start. So it gives you a little bit of time for that group to get over to the commissioner's conference room. I'll meet you at the back door because I realize some of you don't know where that is. So I will meet you back there. And then we will meet back in this room at, what did we decide, about 30 minutes for this? Yeah. So at 11:45, we will meet back in this room at 11:45. All right. All right, guys. How was the, welcome back to those of us that are joining us virtually. Just wanted to recap with Bentley and Rima on how the group discussions went.
You can go first.
Me first.
Microphone, make sure you put your microphone.
So our group discussion, so in case some of you guys may or may not know, so I think it was 2 years ago, the Lieutenant Governor's Office hosted regional mental health summits for about mental health in collaboration with the Department of Education and the regional education cooperatives. And so I think we kind of wanted to model a discussion around student voice on how we did the mental health summits. So we were considering doing a media project amongst us and other people from across the Commonwealth. We also wanted to do roundtable discussions with the educational cooperatives and such, breaking it up regionally. And then publishing, can you guys hear me good? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And then publishing a white paper to an extent, but more individualized. So making a white paper for each region and what their themes of student voice were, while also a volume for Eastern Kentucky, a volume for the Green River region, so on and so forth. And then while at the same time also publishing a like a master white paper to an extent that would describe the common themes from across all the different regions.
Bentley, Dr. Brewer would be so proud of you right now with the white paper. I'll have to make sure that she hears about this.
We kind of did want to like ensure that like different people would have we could kind of brand these in different ways and have different people from different groups going to the event. So we wanted like some students going. So the mental health summits were student-led, and there were only students at the events, but we kind of wanted to expand this a little bit and have students putting in their penny for thought on student voice, but also inviting teachers, administrators, counselors, and so on, so that way they can give their perspective on student voice as well. Because there's different perspectives to student voice and how that plays out at the school and state level.
Great. All right. Looks like you guys had a great discussion. Rima?
I think I covered it all.
Yeah. Okay. Our group, we kind of split our discussion into two different like ideas. So the first one was kind of more similar to last year's project of a white paper or like a little brief about kind of defining what meaningful student voice is and the examples we have already with like student board members on county and district levels and the Commissioner Student Advisory Council and the Kentucky Board of Education with those opportunities to have student voice and kind of showing that these are successful models and here are our recommendations on how you can implement these models on a district level, on a school level, and a classroom level. So it's kind of more like a guide almost. And then the second discussion we had, I guess wasn't as related to like student voice just like definitively, but it was more of like elevating the partnership between teachers and students because right now there's a big disparity in the classroom where teachers aren't like excited to teach about like their content and because of that students aren't engaged in the classroom and kind of providing a platform where teachers can express what they want to do and create like a better teaching environment, but also students have a voice because right now teachers really don't have that like feedback, like a place to receive feedback for that stuff. So more kind of just like a brighter learning experience.
Great. I think both of those actually see a lot of similarities between those, even though you have kind of gone off in like maybe different little buckets. I see that I see that there's possibilities there where they could cross over and perhaps hit several of the areas that you've done. So I think that's great, some great brainstorming. So I think we've got a lot of work to do in terms of trying to figure out where we go. But I think it was very beneficial to have you guys here in the building versus doing something online. I wanted to just see show of hands. Do you guys like coming to the building? Do you think that it's beneficial versus I figured I would get a show of hands after everybody's been in virtual learning for a long time. So I just want to make sure that it's very helpful for you. I know for some of you it's a good ride to come, and I just want to make sure that it is valuable for you all to come here to the building and do this kind of meeting. So, okay. Great. So we will summarize. I think we had a note taker, Seth took notes, and then Michelle Searcy volunteered in this room. So we will get those together. If you can kind of get your notes to me within the next week or so, just type them up. Or today, you can give them to, if you want to pass them on to me, if you've handwritten them, we can get those. Whatever is easiest for you. We'll get those to your chair and your co-chair. And when we have a planning meeting, we'll discuss that. And go from there. The last item that I have on the agenda, actually there's two items. I'm going to go over some student opportunities with you all, and then I'm going to give an opportunity for Nick to talk about his experience on the standard setting council that just, it was a council, right?
They call it workshop panel.
Workshop panel, but it was a council. Many of you may recall, but I have a shout out coming for Nick because many of you are going to be really proud when I tell you what happened, and he will not boast himself, but I'm going to tell you a story. And then I'd like to have RJ just maybe provide a little bit of feedback on his perspective. He attended his first board meeting. We were kind of close. We were at, where were we? Dale Hollow. We were at Dale Hollow State Park in August. And we're able to meet. It was his first meeting, and he coming back, so that's good. So we like when people come back. So first of all, I wanted to talk about Nick. So Nick was, this was an opportunity that was open for all of our students. Our Office of Assessment and Accountability was looking for a student to volunteer to be on the standard setting workshop. It required them to come to Frankfurt for 2 days in June and then 3 days just about 2 weeks ago here. And it matters for accountability scores. I'm trying to put this in words that are for you all to understand. The testing, and then there's accountability. So this is for the color coding system. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, just share about 2 minutes, and then I want to give you a shout out because what he ended up doing, and let me tell you, Nick was you were the only student
Alone.
in a room.
Mm-hmm.
This room was filled with adults, superintendents, community stakeholders, principals, teachers, testing experts. I mean, we have people that are consultants that work at very big firms, and Nick's recommendation, and I'll let him tell you, was around graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And when he stood up for what he believed, and the group, based on his experience as a student, and the group voted to support him. So what he voted about, what he raised, was actually implemented and will be seen in the accountability in the cut scores. So you all should be very proud. He represented really well, so much so that our associate commissioner wrote a letter to his superintendent to say how wonderful it was to have student voice. So when I think about student voice opportunities, those are opportunities as well. So just keep in mind, we'll always give you opportunities to do, but I'll let you guys talk first, and then I'll close out with the opportunities. So go ahead, Nick.
So the Accountability and Standard Setting Committee, like Ms. Tapman said, was 3 years in the making, because in 2020 when Commissioner Glass stepped in, that was when many states were asked to redo their cut scores and accountability for schools for how they're performing on state level assessment. So I know everybody in this room, regardless how much you like it or not, have taken a state exam. And we were tasked on trying to find the individual numbers where a certain score would be in the red, would be in the green, the blue, yellow, and orange. And what we did in June was just trying to find the terminology that we could use to describe it to districts and students and parents whenever they get their kids' testing report card or district report card. And then in September, this month, 2 weeks ago, we decided to get the individual numbers because that is when, without naming names or districts' performance, we were given numbers from last year, just score 1, score A, that sort of thing. And we used it to base on what number, what point do they go from one category to the other? Do they increase, do they decrease, or do they stay in the same category? Because Kentucky is the only state except California that recognizes a change rating. Every other state have a growth rating. Change rating means you could decrease or you could stay the same, but most states only want to look at, did you improve? Did you do better? So we had to take in that as being a very unique component to what we had to do. And if any of you feel nervous in this room, you can only imagine how it is when I have people that have worked as long as I've been alive in this, in this field of education. And when I talked to all of those folks, they were like, we want to hear from what you have to say. And we did a full report at the very end of like, what did we do? Are we okay with it? Do we want to change anything? And at the very end, there were some numbers that will be sent to LSAC and to the department and to, I guess, Commissioner Kinney in her term as an interim to approve them for 6 years. So this will be the policy for Kentucky for 6 years if fully approved. And we're hoping, because we don't want to come back. We are tired. There's some people that have been on this panel for 3 years, and I think they're ready to wrap it up finally. And what happened if they had, in my opinion, I'm not naming names, not naming any certain thing we did, but the cut score seems very low because in Kentucky, most schools have over 100 kids per school, per grade. And in my school, I have 48 kids, in my graduating class. We had about 50, and we lost 2 at the very start of the year. So every kid is worth 2 percentage points, so a little bit over. If you have a class of 100, that would mean every kid is worth 1 point. So I asked if we could raise that a little bit to account for small grade sizes, because if you had it in that very low number, you could have 1 or 2 kids drop out or have a different kind of certificate, because some kids that are in special education or some other expectation for their college readiness or career readiness, they don't account for school graduation. Sometimes they're just rated as 0, sometimes they're given in the negative, and I just thought for schools like mine, in districts like mine, that I just thought it was very unfair. So I asked, with some testimony from other folks, if we could raise the number a little bit higher to account for that, and they luckily voted on it. I had to have 18 votes, I got 19. So I'm very happy to overachieve a little bit on that. But it was a very good process. There was a lot of things that were over my head, but they were willing to help me through it, and it was a really good opportunity.
Great. Well, we appreciate it. It is not an easy, in one form or fashion, I've written about accountability and testing for about 20 years now, and it is not easy to learn about all of that stuff. But I'm glad that you volunteered. We had several people volunteer, and don't worry, we may have more opportunities depending on if it changes again. So appreciate that. RJ, did you want to share a little bit about your experience?
Yes, ma'am. So first of all, I'll tell you my job is, so I'm a member of the board, but I'm a non-voting member. So when it's time to vote, I don't have a vote, but prior to the vote, I advise the council based off what the students in the state of Kentucky want. So the first meeting, we went over a portrait of a learner, which is basically what they want a graduate from the state of Kentucky to look like. And then the last meeting was a special called meeting where they hired Commissioner Kenny, which it was a great opportunity. I didn't have much to say because that's a little bit out of my expertise, but to be able to sit on that meeting was really, really good opportunity for me. And the next meeting is October 11th and 12th, and I will keep you guys updated on what happens on that one.
Yeah, and just a little follow-up on the cut scores, and I know people have been asking about, we're working on setting the public release for test scores and the accountability results. We're a little behind just because we had to do the change on that, so we're looking at probably mid-November for that. Your schools already have your individual results, so that's at a district level, but when it comes to our school report card, which has all of the data, everything from behavior incidents to enrollment to, color codes and all that stuff, we're looking for our big release to be about mid-November. So that's when you can look for that. We'll try to put something on the agenda after that happens, just so you can kind of get an idea. I think that was really helpful last year, just so you guys can understand what that means and what the changes were, and go from there. I do have a couple of opportunities I want to discuss with you before we head out. Number one is that our applications, how many juniors and seniors? If you're a junior or senior, raise your hand. Great. So that's everyone. So I expect an application from everybody in this room for the 2024 U.S. Senate Youth Program. That is open to all Kentucky juniors and seniors. The Division of Communications helps manage this program. Glyptis Ann was here. She may have stepped out for a minute. She's getting her computer fit. Oh, she is back there. Oh, she's hiding behind Stu. There she is. Okay. So she has been multitasking with all of our stuff with Teacher of the Year and all the things that we got going on. But this is a big deal because it means scholarship money. It's $10,000 of scholarship. You get to go to Washington for a week in Washington to meet with leaders in Washington. It really is a great opportunity. In fact, I have a book on my desk if you at lunchtime want to look through it. It's pictures from last year. We have several students over the years that have been selected. It's a great opportunity. We'll send you links about columns that we've had our students write over the past couple of years about their experiences. They highly recommend it, and the only way to get it is to apply. So the deadline is you have to get them in by October 2nd. So not much time. I will say as of right now, we have no applications in, which does not surprise me with students. It is not, I figure most of things will come in late. But take a look at the application process. Do that right away, because there may be some steps in there that you will need to complete that might need a teacher or a counselor or a principal to sign off on, or a parent. Be prepared, but it is $10,000. The other thing, couple other things I wanted to let you know is that if you know of a great classified school staff person, we are accepting nominations for the RISE Award. Those nominations are open another day. This literally will take you a minute to do. If you know a great bus driver, a custodian, a school clerk, food service, anybody who is like basically not a teacher that works in your school setting, please nominate them for this award. Office staff, anybody, could be, anybody who is a non-certified position. We will award 2 of these. It will involve coming to your school and surprising this person with either the governor or lieutenant governor, and all the jazz that comes with that. They will also be recommended for the national award and could be visited by the U.S. Secretary of Education as well. So we've had some great nominees over the past year. We may ask for a student to serve on, in fact, I know we're going to ask for a student to serve on the judging panel for this, so look for that in your email. But a great opportunity to nominate a classified staff, and it literally will take a minute. The Google form is like 4 or 5 questions. But please take the time and explain why do you think this person deserves this award. The other thing is our Teacher of the Year was named a couple of weeks ago from Boone County, Kevin Daly. Who knows Kevin Daly? I figured you guys would know Kevin Daly. Kumar Rashad from Jefferson County. He's at Breckenridge Metro High School, which is an alternative school for high school students in Jefferson County, is our high school Teacher of the Year. And Donnie Wilkerson from Russell County was our elementary school Teacher of the Year. So really exciting ceremony. We had it at the Capitol. Valvoline was a great sponsor of ours. And then that Saturday, we were invited by the University of Kentucky to go to the football game. And so the commissioner and I were excited to go, and we had Mandy Perez, who you all have met mostly, and then Donnie and Kevin and Amber, Dr. Sargent, was there. And so we were able to recognize them on the field at the September 16th football game. So really appreciative of Valvoline and the University of Kentucky for being wonderful partners with this agency and really letting our teachers be king and queen for the day, and really actually for the week and the year, because it's really how our teachers should be treated. So if you know an outstanding teacher, that process will open on November 1st. So you have a little bit more time to think about that, and really that is just a quick little nomination, because your teacher, once they're nominated, will have to do the heavy loading on that part. But so all of that stuff we will put in your exit slip today for you to take time. I would say prioritizing. I would make sure if you're interested in that scholarship, go ahead and take a look at that today. Look and see what you have to do to complete that, and go ahead and get that out, because you don't know if you don't try. And everybody in this room, for the most part, is eligible for that. So I would love to see that. Let your friends know, and we hope to see an application. And I think that's it. We have lunch. I'm going to show you the way to go, because we have it set up a little differently for those of you that have been with us before. It is Chick-fil-A nuggets and chips, and there's cookies and other stuff. So our next meeting is in about a month. Do you know the date? Is it on there? It is virtual, October 18th. It is virtual, and we will see you then.